Welcome back to the first Forza video I've done in a while. 2 years ago I moved into an RV and brought my next level sim racing rig with me. I've been playing the Forza franchise for years and I'm a regular in the FM7 ABC lobbies. I play exclusively on my Logitech G920 and know firsthand just how frustrating trying to tune a wheel is on this game. So, if you want to race Forza with a Logitech, or any other sim wheel for that matter, hopefully you can benefit from my suffering. Holy Holy I'm in. Sorry for the low resolution quality here. I recorded this all off of my Twitch profile, which records at 720p. So if you're looking to see how beautiful this game is, this is probably not your video. This is a tutorial for people who are trying to get more of an experience from a sim racing wheel in Forza.
When it's blue, be on the gas. When it's red, hit those brakes.
I play this game with no assists on. That means no ABS, traction control, or suggested lines. It makes it more challenging and realistic. And before you start asking me why I'm not iRacing or PC racing, I would like to remind you that I live in an RV, which means I spend all of my gaming PC money making sure my roof doesn't leak. I like Forza a lot for its sense of community, and yes, there are diehards that still haunt the Forza Motorsport 7 lobbies, but with the style of racing it offers, it also challenges you to be a more observant driver and how to handle the challenges of physical car confrontation we are all too familiar with in an online lobby in this game. The new Forza is different in a lot of ways. The graphics are jaw-dropping on a Series X, and the cars feel more realistic all the way around. And although this game was much easier to jump in and play on an untuned wheel than Forza Motorsport 7 was, it literally took me 2 months of beating my head against the wall on the old game to feel like I was getting anywhere with it. Luckily, most of the inputs from the old Forza Motorsports to the new game are almost identical. So I was able, for the most part, to just copy my setup from the previous game and get it to work for me. But I want to walk you all through my process so that you can compare and save yourself, hopefully, a little heartache.
That's just a taste of a typical practice session with light traffic.
Although I was able to drive pretty effortlessly on the new game, the steering wheel had no real feeling to it. It was really hard to commit to corners and feel when the car was losing grip or when understeer was about to happen. I had to wait for the new introduction to get done to be allowed to mess with any of the settings. This part you just kind of have to muddle through, and I wasn't pushing anything hard at all, just having fun.
Changing the difficulty settings before the race. Now let's get after it.
The first thing I want to show you are the settings I used for years in Forza Motorsport 7. You can copy or write these down if you want, but I'll talk more about how they relate to the new game here in just a second. Now let's talk about how the magic happens. Disregard these first few adjustments of me setting all my pedal dead zones and trying to get my clutch to work on this game, which is another whole video in itself. I like to look at these settings the same way you would look at the settings on an old school stereo equalizer, in that there's a master adjustment volume and then there are fine tuning settings for your bass and your treble. Now I know we aren't adjusting speakers, but these settings tune how your wheel works in game very similarly, and once I understood that, everything got a lot easier. Vibration scale is something I don't use on my wheel. It's a feature that is supposed to add extra feedback when you hit a curb or other cars on the track. I feel like a properly tuned wheel is going to give you plenty of vibration feedback, so I turned this setting all the way down. Remember when I said there was a master volume switch? How many of you turned this up to get more response from your wheel? Would you believe I actually turned mine down a lot? Have you ever had your wheel bounce back and forth in the center or fight you when you're transitioning corners? It's probably because your force feedback scale is set way too high. I like to start by turning this down until you can let go of your wheel after making a turn and it doesn't bounce back and forth or vibrate unnecessarily. After we adjust some of the other settings below, our road feel and the wheel heaviness will come back in a more realistic way They can be much easier controlled. I set mine at 45 and it feels very good here. The next setting, called steering self-alignment, was called aligning torque scale in the previous game, and I believe they do the same thing. I think this translates into how much force you want applied to align your wheel with the tires. I max this out because I want to have as much aligning force as possible. Mechanical trail scale is how much manual steering feeling you have in your wheel. Ever drive a car without power steering? This is what that setting mimics, so the adjustment should be done to your driving style. If you like a little less of a power steering feel and want a heavier wheel, this is one of the main settings that adjusts that. I like a heavier feeling in my wheel, so I went up to 190 for this setting. Play around with this until you have the desired weight you want. Pneumatic trail scale is how much power steering feeling you would like your wheel to have. If you want less mechanical feel and more of a power steering feel to your wheel, this is how it is achieved. I lowered mine down quite a bit, and I have found the best feel to be around 130 points less than the mechanical. I still get a power assisted feeling, but the weight of the car isn't compromised. Road feel scale amplifies the curbs and the bumps in the road through your wheel. This is one that I didn't make any adjustments to because I feel like when the wheel is properly tuned, no added input is needed. But if after you've tuned everything, you still don't feel enough of the road, this is what I would tune first before going back to the force feedback scale. Load sensitivity is how much torque is applied to the wheel for the tire load fluctuations. I obviously turned this all the way up because knowing what your tires are doing is probably one of the most important things to pay attention to as a driver. Being able to feel small changes in your car's balance allows you to correct and make changes to your driving line much quicker. Wheel damping scale is how you set the resistance you want to feel in your wheel. This is going to vary widely between different sim wheels. Because I have a pretty basic entry-level wheel, I turn this setting all the way up. If you have a direct drive wheel, I would suggest playing with this setting a little bit more until you have the desired resistance. Center spring scale is how much additional force you want applied to keep your wheel centered. I feel like a properly tuned wheel will return to center just fine on its own, so I set mine to 0, but if you're having problems with your wheel not centering, this is what I would look at. Be careful though, setting this too high is what usually causes your wheel to bounce in the center. Dynamic damper behavior controls how quickly it decreases your wheel dampening scale when your tires slip to try and preserve detail. Because I set my wheel dampening scale so high, I left this maxed out. My thinking is, I don't want feeling taken away from me when my tires are starting to slip. Steering sensitivity sets how sensitive the steering wheel is to the movement of your wheel. I want this to be very sensitive and do not need my center values dampened, so naturally I max this setting out. Steering linearity sets your response speeds at the center and near full lock. Lower values slow the response at the center while speeding it up towards the edges, while higher values do the opposite. Because I don't need my responses at either changed, I left this neutral. There it is, your basic tuning guide. Remember to adjust one setting at a time and then go test drive to see if you like the changes or not. I copied my values from Forza Motorsport 7 and made small adjustments as I saw necessary because of the time I have into playing the game. After you have all of your settings where you like them, go back to the force feedback scale, or the master volume as I like to call it, and make small adjustments up or down to further fine-tune your setup. I hope this was helpful, and you were able to use it to get a better feeling out of your wheel and more consistent lap times. Feel free to leave a like if this video helped you at all. And if you have any other tips or tuning advice for sim wheels on the game, I would love to hear about it down in the comments. Thanks again for watching, and subscribe if you want to see more Forza Motorsports content.